Hey Rocco, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Amanda?
It's good to talk to you today.
Yeah.
So, Rocco, you're the VP of marketing at LinearB, which is a super fun company to work with. We've worked with you previously, but tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your background and about what you do.
Yeah, I'm the VP of marketing at LinearB. We're like a 3-year-old SaaS startup that makes productivity tools for software engineering teams. We call it Dev Pipeline Acceleration. Um, I've been doing SaaS startups for about 20 years. I actually ran sales teams for the first 10 years, and then wasn't wasn't fulfilled creatively as much as I wanted to
Yeah,
in sales. So I was able to pivot and lead marketing teams, and I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And I
I
lead an
think that
awesome. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's an awesome skill set. A lot of times people see like marketing more siloed and you need to like, that's what you build your career on or sales. And I think it's really good when you can have like that combination of both skill sets because to me, they're kind of the same job, but
It
like
play
they're
it
just,
played Yeah, this trend where marketing was getting a lot closer to revenue in the last 10 years and starting to be measured more on revenue played into my strengths. I know exactly what the sales leader is looking for. I know exactly what customers are looking for when they buy. And also, I'm used to being measured on a number, and I'm used to being measured on revenue, which is how I'm measured at LinearB in the last couple of startups where I led marketing. So I'm very comfortable with that. A lot of marketing leaders
yeah,
had more of an adjustment around that.
for sure. Absolutely. Well, I have a few questions for you today, especially around the SaaS space. And my first question, like a lot of times we see when we're working with some of our SaaS clients, is that education early in the customer journey is really important, but it can be such a challenge, especially if you're like, rolling something new out into the market that maybe people aren't familiar with or they don't even understand the concept behind. What advice do you have for brands or for marketers that are maybe rolling out a new product or really do have heavy education that's needed in their customer journey?
Yeah, I know this is popular these days, but we're building a category at LinearB. The there's we have a few competitors, but really
Mhm.
no one existed doing what we do until a couple years ago, and the market is still very early. So we really have to um, educate the market. The the thing that we found worked really well for us was we invest heavily in thought leadership and um, really sort of um, educating people on the why behind like what we're doing, right? You can't sell someone a solution to a problem if they don't know they have a problem. And a lot of people think about um, problems in terms of like technology that's available to help them solve it. So if they're not aware that there's
Mhm.
solutions out there, I actually think vendors do an incredible job um, of defining problems that customers don't necessarily know they have. So if
Yeah.
historically there haven't been any vendors, and you may not be aware that you have a problem or that it's a problem that can be solved. So there's a couple things that we do around thought leadership. Um, First of all, we talk about big ideas. We talk about the future of what software engineering teams could look like if they ran better, and um, we do that in a way where we don't talk about LinearB, we don't talk about our product, um, and we really just try to create value. And That's the first thing, is just purely
Love
talk
that.
about the ideas and talk about the problems and um, the possible solutions, and we don't talk about our product. The second thing we do is we try to build community around that. So um, the vendors do play a key role in educating customers, but other customers can play an even bigger role in that. And
Yeah.
so one of the things we did early in our marketing team, I'm talking about when there was two of us and we had like no budget, was we created a Discord community, which if you're not familiar with Discord, it's like a combination of like Slack and AOL chat room. Um, and that platform worked well for us because we work with software developers, and there are a lot of them on Discord. And so we actually created a community of people who were interested in the thought leadership ideas that we were blogging about and podcasting about. And we would allow them to come in and then talk to each other about it. So now they're educating each other on the problems, the pain, the solution. And we inevitably have customers that will talk about LinearB and how they use LinearB in that community, but it's not focused on that, and it's not driven from LinearB. So it's a lot more credible when a customer talks about how they're using LinearB to solve a problem. And that's been huge for educating our clients. The third thing that's really critical, one of the new categories that I really like to draw inspiration from that popped up in the last 10 years is customer success.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the incredible job that some of the vendors like Gainsight did in building the customer success category, they created the thought leadership. They created the community around their event Pulse and other communities like that. They also new categories need like faces and people to like lead the charge.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last thing we did is taken our own founders and some of our customers and some of the members of our community and put a lot of energy into raising their profile, so that the other software engineering teams and leaders that are starting to try to understand, like, what is this LinearB thing? What is dev pipeline acceleration? I've never heard of this. Do I need it? We've put some faces around the revolution, right? And so it makes it easier for people to buy into some of the ideas, buy into the community, and all those things have helped sort of try to educate our customers in a way that's a little different than just trying to talk about features and benefits.
I like you provide so much value before, like, basically everything you talked about was about providing value to your industry and providing value to your space. Like, that obviously is super, and it's not just to your customers, it's like literally to the industry that you're a part of. I mean, that is a really important way to look at it. And I mean, one of the things that I think is cool that LinearB does is that, like, dev pipe, like, you know, if you're in an agency, if you're a developer, whatever you're doing, if you work with a developer, you know that they're like, 1 week will be crazy, super overwhelming, not able to get anything extra accomplished, you know, working 80 hours a week, and then the next week is like 10 hours. And it's just like, you just think, oh, well, that just comes with the, like, that just comes with the industry, that just comes with what we do. And, you know, people didn't even realize there was a solution to it. And here, you know, you guys have one. And I just think that the value that you provide and the thought leadership that you provide around that, I mean, obviously you're going to win, you're going to score points with potential customers because they value what you're bringing to them. And that's like a long game. That is super awesome. One of the things that I can sometimes find frustrating, especially in the SaaS space, is that sometimes brands are stingy and they like don't want to give anything away for free. And they feel like, oh, like, I need to be really charged up. Like, people got to pay me $1 million up front before they even try my product. I know that y'all don't believe in that, but why do you think that brands are afraid to maybe give away like either like a free subscription model, or, you know, a free base subscription model, or even like a trial? Why do you think brands are afraid of that?
Well, first, yeah, you just said a second ago, it's about like the long game. So the problem is you're gonna put focus on what you're measured on, right? So
Yeah.
like that's the beginning of like this broken thought process, in my opinion, with B2B SaaS marketing, is that if you have a board of directors and a CEO and a sales leader who all think about sales leads, you're naturally going to get measured on short-term things like sales leads.
Yep.
And I think there's even a lot of education out there about, you know, how like bad MQLs are and the negative behavior they create. But even if you just take MQLs out of the equation, If your goal is to get a customer to give you their information at any cost, you're going to be incentivized to do bad behavior, like be stingy and keep really valuable things to yourself. So at LinearB, we give everything away for free. We give our incredible thought leadership away for free. Our community is totally free. We have incredible events that are totally free, and we don't gate we don't gate anything. We don't gate any of our content. Even our people think we're crazy because in Discord, it's totally anonymous. So we have thousands of community members in our Discord. Most of them use like a username. They don't use their name. So we don't even know. And people are like, how do you monetize your community? It's like, well, we don't. We just give value away, and we're playing a long game. Now, that we believe in that, and we believe in product-led growth. So we don't just give away our content and value and thought leadership and videos and everything. We lead with giving away our product for free. And look, like, we're not just being altruistic. It works really well for us. This approach creates highly qualified leads, and a lot more. We're creating a lot more demand and capturing a lot more demand for our sales team because of that, right? We about a year ago pivoted from being trial based, where customers would come in, we would meet with them, we would allow them to get a free trial for 3 weeks right away. We would manually onboard to them to that trial. They would get to see our product for free early in the journey, but it was still a sales-led journey. A year ago, we said, no, we're going all in on product-led growth. Forget, we don't want you to have to talk to us just so you can see our product. We don't want you to have to go talk to anyone if you don't want to. So we pivoted and went fully product-led. We created a free tier of our product. We removed all the friction to signing up so you can do it yourself in 4 minutes or 5 minutes. And that we went from getting, I don't even remember, 10 or 20 new trials a week to overnight, in like 45 days, getting thousands of dev teams a month signing up for our product. And then we did the next crazy thing, which is, instead of the moment they sign up, having sick SDRs on them and email them sales emails and call them and immediately try to convert them, we don't do that. We don't actually ever contact our free customers unless they raise their hand and say, I want to talk to sales. All we do is try to give them value around how to use the product to accomplish use cases, and we let them come to us. Now, we would not be able to do that if our board and our CEO didn't fully understand the value of product-led growth. And but again, it's easy for everyone to buy into this, because after we just allowed this experiment to run for months, we like tripled our sales. It transformed, and we're a fast growing startup, so we're doubling and tripling quarter over quarter anyway, but the results spoke for themselves. And so we are then able to invest more in giving more great things away for free, because it just works for us. But again, I have to give credit to our VCs and our board and our CEO, because there's no way as a marketing leader I'd be able to do that if they weren't fully bought in, and if they weren't giving me like the runway to play that long game.
Well, and I think it's like, your audience too. Like, could you imagine if you were to have a bunch of SDRs or even like demos? Like, your audience, they don't need a demo. They are super tech forward.
They just want to use it themselves. They'll decide. Yeah, they don't need anyone to help them decide.
Right. One of the things that I was chatting with somebody at Vidyard about a couple of days ago was like building trust and authenticity, and why that's so important. And when you go, like product-led growth that is being authentic, and it's trusting and that your product is good enough to speak for itself, and that your audience is going to figure it out. You're not like, I don't know, you just are enabling them to use your tool in the best way. I think that's awesome.
Now, again, it goes back to your first question as well. If we have a tool that's new, people aren't familiar with it. So we've had to
Yeah.
invest a lot in education. We've had to figure out how to put an incredible amount of content that's inside the app. So there's its own challenges with product-led growth. You now all of a sudden have this ability to interact with your customer in real time while they're looking at their data inside of your product. And that's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge, because instead of everything being on your website, or instead of email nurture drip campaigns, which are the least effective way to reach somebody if they're already in your product, you have to create content that we create content that lives inside of our drift bots, and that live inside of our app, inside of our app queues tutorials, which our in-app is our in-app engine that powers a lot of our in-app education. We have to do it natively in the app itself. The actual product has to educate. So it's changed the way we've had to think about content as a marketing team, because white papers and email nurtures don't work when the customer is already inside of your app. So we've had to take the content, change the location of it, and then also as a result of that, change the form factor of it, so that the customers can be successful when they're in the product on their own, even though we're not walking them through it from a sales standpoint.
Yeah, you have to make education really intuitive and like be able to figure that out. One of the things that we talked about so much during this, but I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper, you know, a lot of times marketing teams and marketers are like, we got to get more leads, more leads, more leads. They're almost thinking more bottom of the funnel now. Talked about how marketing has metrics behind it, which it didn't a decade ago. But now it does. It's not just a feel good activity inside of a business. Like, it has something that it's responsible for. But LinearB focuses so much on thought leadership and on providing value. I mean, that's a huge investment in your brand.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's so important? And like, how, and you've already mentioned too, like, you have, you know, a VC team and an executive leadership team that's behind this, but not all marketers or, you know, even business leaders have that. So first of all, why is it important? And then how can you help leadership teams kind of pivot or shift their mentality from being so bottom of the funnel driven?
Yeah, first of all, there's a lot of correlations between investing in community and brand and product-led growth, but there's not the same. There are a lot of startups that run a product-led growth playbook that involves just tons of paid channels, performance channels that drive to a landing page where you sign up for the product, and that's the way they do their version of product-led growth. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not what we do. We invest heavily in brand. And again, in fact, we have the room to do this because my job as a VP of marketing, I have a mandate to drive. I'm responsible for two outcomes, and they're equal. 50% outcome that I'm responsible for is brand, and only 50% is revenue. And so again, I have the air cover. So one lesson is, you better, if you're like choosing a marketing team, marketers, you got to find a company where the CEO and the board get what they want you to do. If they're asking you to build a brand, or they're asking you to build a community or product-led growth, you can look quickly at their marketing's quarterly OKRs or just the way they talk, and figure out if they really believe that, or if they're setting you up for failure. I've fortunately been set up for success in that, you know, we're asked to drive brand, and our OKRs are set up for that. Now, the way that looks is not just like sort of giving away all this thought leadership like we talked about before, and having the room to invest in the community, but we really have tried to create a unique brand voice from the very beginning, and so we're able to be fun and quirky and creative, and that's a big part of it. We have a big part of our brand is our founders. So again, I mentioned earlier, like
Mhm.
creating champions. Um, we we have put a lot of energy in just raising the visibility of our CEO and our COO, our two co-founders, and now they, in a short amount of time, in a year, by publishing massive amounts of content under their name,
Mhm.
blogs, videos. We started a podcast. Um, we have found now that it used to be a push and now there's a pull. People come to Dan and Ori in the media, across
Love
events,
that.
to get them to talk about these topics and that raises our brand. But it's hard, right? Like we started a podcast when we were tiny. Like we were like a 20-person company and a 2-person marketing team. We started a podcast, and the numbers were not great initially, but we kept going, right?
Uh-huh.
And now we're at the point where we get thousands of downloads per episode, but it took us like a year to get to that point.
Mhm.
Um, the initial guests that we would have on the podcast were like, they were great. We love you if you were one of our early guests, but they were not big names. Now, in
Mhm.
the last 90 days, we've had um, VPs from Google. We've had the CTO
So
of
cool.
GitLab. We've had the VP of
Wow.
engineering of GitHub. We've had like the biggest names that the people in the software development community care about. And we just had to like we had to grind that out. We had to
Mhm.
play a long game. But again, you aren't sure if it's working or not, and then one day you just realize it's working. And I'll share a story with you that I'll never forget, which is in January of this year, we were doing a company kickoff, and I
Mhm.
invited a bunch of our paying customers to come and tell our company and our engineering team and everybody in our company like how they were using LinearB, what they liked about it. And so these are people that have gone through the journey of finding our thought leadership, finding our community, signing up for free, and then they loved it so much that they brought it to their entire team and started paying. And I don't remember how many customers it was exactly. 7, 8, 9 customers came through, and time after time, I would ask them how they're using it, and they would describe that, and that was great. But then time after time, um, I would say, why did you choose LinearB like over any competitors? And they would say the following things. What would you expect a prospect to say in that situation? You had this one feature, I couldn't live without it. Or we did an evaluation and not one of the customers said that. They all said, you know, we just had been listening to Dan's pod for a while. We just really believe everything that he has to say.
I
Or
love it.
we love your Dev Interrupted community. Um, we didn't even know LinearB sponsored Dev Interrupted. So by the way, we made a crazy decision around investing in our brand. We created a separate brand for our thought leadership called Dev Interrupted. That's the name of our community, our
Mhm.
pod. We have a media website that has a massive
Mhm.
amount of content on it. And it's sponsored by LinearB, and there's a lot of connections. But we believe so strongly in that we created a separate media property with a separate
I
brand.
love
People
that.
think we're completely crazy for this, and yet it works, right? Our
Yeah.
content gets picked up by massive national content syndicators who wouldn't pick up content from a vendor, but who will
Right.
pick it up from us. But
Right.
anyway, time after time, these customers basically said, I just loved what you guys had to say. I thought it was so cool that you had a community. I thought it was nice that you didn't make me talk to a sales rep. I could just sign up and figure out on my own if I like your product. So time after time, the customer said they chose us not for any feature functionality reasons, but because we they loved our brand, they loved our point of view, they loved our community, or they loved our product-led growth model. And so you start to see, if you're looking for it, there's ways to measure the value of brand. and you start to see that. And then, by the way, we measure some more quantitative ways of knowing that our brand works, right? We measure branded searches, people that are just going to Google and searching for LinearB. You know, our branded searches have skyrocketed in the last year after we started investing in that. So it's hard. You need the top level air cover from the VC and from the CEO. But it's totally paid off for us. I do think now we're on to something in this space, and literally we've gone from no vendors doing what we do in the last 4 years ago to there being probably 30 or 40 competitors. And I think we're well positioned to be the leader in the space, not just because we have an incredible product, but because of our brand and our community. That's our way that we can differentiate from what is becoming a very crowded space, and potentially even a commoditized space in the future. We'll be insulated from that because of our brand.
I love that. Rocco, this has been like a super inspiring chat for me. I
had a lot of
really
fun. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I hope that we can chat again.
By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't mention how much LoanFur has helped us in all of these areas. We love partnering with you guys. You guys are amazing.
Awesome. Thank you for saying that. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. Have a great weekend.